Hi, it's Liberty. I haven't done a video in a while and I wanted to share. I've been working on a topic for a little over a month and I haven't really found a neutral way to address the topic. I'm going to try anyway though. There are some of us that seem to find abusive relationships more readily or more available than others. We find ourselves in them with friends, with family, with lovers, more than our girlfriends or more than our boyfriends. And I recently read a quote, and it's by Pete Walker, and there are many predators that have a sixth sense for identifying people that have lost the ability to protest and blame unfairness. If we don't register a negative feeling response to hurtfulness, we cannot tell we are being abused. During this past month, I've learned a lot, and I've been grappling with the idea of fault versus responsibility in abusive relationships and abusive friendships also. Mine are mostly abusive friendships that I've been dealing with more recently. It's not our fault that we find ourselves in these, but it is our responsibility to stand up for ourselves, protect ourselves, and end these abusive relationships. And that was a hard pill to swallow. It's not necessarily our fault, but it's still my responsibility to set these boundaries, to end these relationships. And for me, I found that it goes back to the old wounds. More inner child work. I found that for me, I had a wound that was a lack wound. And so it was harder to pinpoint exactly. I couldn't just point to the T and say that, there's the trauma, that's what needs healed. With a lack, you know something is missing, but you can't put your finger on what exactly is missing. You know something's missing, you just don't know what it is. So it's a lot harder to do the reparenting when you can't really pinpoint like what exactly it was. So I did a session and I went through and I was able to see a lack. And so I was able to recreate a scene that covered over the lack. And so for me, mine was a lack of love. And so it wasn't necessarily the abandonment wound Requiem. This was it was an abandonment, but more so a lack of love. And so when I saw this, I was able to realize that A, I had the lack, and B, that now that I've done the work, I know what was missing. And it took me years to find out what exactly was missing, because when you're from an ACE childhood, you don't really know what love is or what a loving person does. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's been years in the making of me figuring out exactly what was missing in my childhood and how to give that to myself. And I finally saw the picture and I was able to recreate it, and I was able to bring in a parenting figure. It was a grandparent figure. I made it a safe. So I brought in a grandparent figure, and I told this child that I was loved all along. I was always loved. That was the words I used. I was always loved. And during the session, I was able to envision this grandparent figure rocking this little child and saying, "You were always loved. You were always loved. You were always loved." And so after I came out of that, I went back in. If you followed me, you know I do my process several times before I really have a solid standalone. So the second time when I went back into the reparenting, I Googled an image of my little girl zombie, my kicked puppy. She's the little girl from Walking Dead. I got a little figure of her now. But so I pulled her up on Google and I had her on the computer screen, and I'm holding my surrogate, my stuffy on a leash, and I'm rocking my little zombie and looking at the little zombie and telling her, "I was always loved. I was always loved. I was always loved." And then I was able to sing to her, and I gave her this loving experience that she never had. And so I was able to find the lack and find how I can give to myself. And that was a pretty powerful experience. And of course, afterward, that's when I ordered my little girl zombie. But I found I'm coming back to this fault versus responsibility, because for me, I feel responsible for not only educating myself, but preparing others in the whole, not necessarily dating relationships, but friendships as well, because with me working on the social aspect of my life this year, I'm finding that it's a responsibility that I have to see when people are being manipulative and abusive, and noticing when I'm triggered, and then standing up for those boundaries and that little girl. And when I was standing up for myself and my boundaries, I kept thinking, why me? Why blah, blah, all the self-pity talk was coming in. Why is this happening? Why would this person do this to me? Why would they be that evil? And then I had to take a step back and realize that it wasn't my fault, but I had responsibility in it, because I allowed that person to break into the prison. I allowed someone to break into the prison and roam the halls, and I had responsibility in that. And now I see from a different perspective, because I know more now, because I've done the research. There are predators out there that willingly prey on people like us, that are more conscientious, more naive, more trusting. We have high hopes. We think people are more good than bad. That if they just find their childhood wounds and heal them, that they will be non-abusive in the future. And that's not necessarily the reality with people that are just, disordered. And that hurt. But I watched a video that, I don't recommend anybody watch this video, but it's like 30 minutes long, of this guy. And I don't even remember what the title was. It was like something like advice all boys need to hear, or something like that. And of course, your girl is somewhat of an emotional masochist, so of course I watched it. And I cried the whole time, and I watched it 3 times. Cried the whole time, all 3 times. But this man was advocating for our young boys to literally prey on single moms. To go in there, manipulate us, make us think that you like us, get your rocks off, and then bounce. Play us, and then bounce. He was saying that any man that would marry a single mom would be cucking, because he'd be taking care of someone else's kids. And I was married to a cuck. Like, that's not a cuck. But that's beside the point. I digress. Oh, the fact that it is advocated to never wife up a single mom, to play them, that there was just so much wrong with that video, that women start losing, he called it like a sexual market value, and that we lose our value once we turn 23. And I'm still amazed, even though I've watched it 3 times, I'm still flabbergasted that someone would advocate bold-faced lying, manipulation, hurting people, preying on people. Like, but then again, I see, like, we have a responsibility to protect ourselves. We need to understand that they are out there. It's not our fault that we have fallen for them, but it is our responsibility to recognize the symptoms, recognize the patterns, and to stand up for ourselves. And that was the hardest thing for me over the last few weeks, is being both triggered by something and still having the courage to say, these are the behaviors, this is not cool, these are abusive behaviors, and you don't have to behave like this, it's not okay. So knowing the boundaries that we have to put in place, and the self-love we have to do that, it doesn't come from a cheap self-love place, from, just random affirmations. It comes, that kind of standing up for yourself only comes after you really do the work to heal these wounds and heal these little children. And I'm amazed at the amount of work I've done. I'm my brain is like on fire the last month, and I see so much more now than I ever saw when it comes to abusive interpersonal communications, and just like how they start and how insidious they are, and the signs. Like, we don't recognize, just like the Pete Walker quote, we don't recognize hurtfulness, because we were conditioned as children to not have feelings, to not be in our body, to not stand up, to not have any assertiveness, to not have any aggression or anything that says, this is me and what you're doing is not okay. Like, that has been the biggest thing in all of this, is getting to recognize abusive behaviors, the hurtfulness when it first begins, that the insidious beginnings. And I know I've learned that there are several different ways that they come at us too. Like, you've got some narcissists come at you with the love bombing. They'll love bomb you. They'll, value you. They'll tell you everything you ever thought you wanted to hear. They'll pretend like they're like exactly your match. And then there are the other people that just They come out of the gate patronizing, and you're like, oh, like thinking it's a joke, or thinking, oh, they're just awkward like me. And so they put their foot in their mouth. No, like, stop giving the benefit of the doubt. Like, if you notice a red flag is a red flag is a red flag. I'm amazed at how similar the abuse feels, but how different the approaches can be with the different character disorders. And I know for me, I know what I'm most attracted to because of my childhood upbringing. We are conditioned to be attracted to what our parents were. So taking responsibility of that. I gotta own my side of the street. I gotta own how I allowed someone into my prison. I gotta own how I keep those kind of people out of my prison. And how do I bust myself out of my prison so that I'm not so closed off to people that could be decent humans, because I have seen that I'm in the prison of my own making, and that scares away healthy people. And the only people that will be adamant enough to try to break into the prison are people that want to do us harm. No healthy person will be like, oh, this person won't talk, oh, this person won't talk, oh, this person won't open up, oh, this person won't, like, after a few attempts, they're gonna be like, okay, like, you don't want to open up, you don't want to share, you don't want to be intimate, see you later, bye. And then there's that interplay of, we trust too much then. Oh, this person broke into my prison, they gotta be trustworthy, right? So it's our responsibility to know who to trust, how to trust. We don't just blindly trust everyone with everything. It goes back to that whole trust star. You know who you can trust to borrow money and pay you back. You know who you can trust to watch your kids. You know who you can trust to borrow your vehicle. You know who you can trust to listen to you cry. You know who you can trust to help you beat someone up with a baseball bat. We tend to give blind trust once someone has broke down our barriers. We're like, oh, this person broke into the prison, so that means we can just trust them with everything, right? No. And knowing who and how that's one piece of it, but then we have our own responsibility. We have our own wounds to heal. We have our own love to give ourselves. And ultimately, that's the one thing that I've learned, is the responsibility of love falls onto me. I am not healed enough to look outside of myself for love and affection and attention. I'm not healed enough for that. I still own my responsibility of, my wounds are mine. I need to find my wounds. I need to heal them. I need to reparent. I need to fill myself with the love and care that I should have gotten in childhood that I never got. It's my responsibility now. And I need to continue doing that every day of my life until I am healed enough to break down my prison walls and allow someone healthy to enter the prison gates and roam the halls. But ultimately, I did want to share the knowledge that there are predators out there, and we really need to stop being so naive to think that these are just wounded people like us that just need help. there are a lot of predators out there that know what they're doing. They are actively preying on us and deliberately trying to hurt us. And it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to keep ourselves safe. And you can only do that by maintaining your boundaries. And you can't maintain your boundaries until you have a healthy self-love. So this road is not easy. It's not easy at all. And even over the years of recovery, I still have come back. I'm circling the drain again, coming back to the same old stuff, but I'm seeing it in a new way and in a new light. And I'm picking it up. I'm picking it up within a week of texting someone, within one phone call. I can pick up abusive behaviors now that I was blind to for years. And so for that, I'm giving myself credit and giving myself praise. And I'm grateful that I stood up and I had the courage to say, this is abusive behavior and I will not stand for this. And honestly, I hope everyone can get to that place of self-love and self-acceptance that they're willing to stand up for that little child inside and say, no, you are not going to abuse me. I don't really know where I was going with this. I know I needed to vent and share some of this knowledge, and I honestly hope that nobody ever needs this knowledge or needs to come out of a relationship like that. But just know, if you are in a situation like that, it is not going to be easy to see the reality for what it is, and to love and accept yourself enough to set those boundaries and to leave that relationship. It's not easy, and you're not alone. You are not alone. There are many of us here with you. And I'm sure I will have more to say later once I fully process all of this. It's still really fresh and really raw with me, so I haven't really been able to really share. But yeah, I will definitely have more to share later once I fully process. And so with that, I will talk with you all later. Bye.